If you ask folks in other parts of the world when Texas first began, they might point to the original naming of the territory or point to some ancient designation. Ask folks from Texas, and the answer would most certainly have something to do with independence, the Alamo, or the firing of a particular cannon at a small skirmish in Gonzales, Texas, and that world-famous phrase, "Come and take it."
Texas is full of lost history, from lost cemeteries to abandoned buildings, from the infamous to the obscure. Hitch a ride and travel across the Lone Star State, looking for hints of Texas' colorful past, our lost history. This is Expedition Texas, and we're gonna find it.
The Battle of Gonzales marked the first military fight of the Texas Revolution in 1835. The famous flag from that Gonzales clash has become a hallmark of Texas pride, with its "Come and Take It" message, one of Texas' most defining. It is the first flag used in the Texas Revolution, and close to 200 years later shows no signs of going away. Sewn together from a tattered wedding dress and emblazoned with the image of a cannon and the famous phrase, this flag flew so high that Santa Anna's army would be sure to see it, right before they heard the blast of a cannon that they themselves had loaned the people of Gonzales. A walk around modern-day Gonzales, Texas proves that echoes of that cannon fire still rumble through the trees to this day. Clint Hilley serves as the Main Street director and local historian when it comes to the famous flag that still flies over Gonzales, Texas.
Gonzales, Texas was originally settled by Grin DeWitt, who received a grant from Mexico. This area was all under Mexican rule at the time, and we were operating under the Constitution of 1824. Grin DeWitt brought his colonists and settled on the banks of the Guadalupe near the current town site of Gonzales. There were a lot of problems with Indians, primarily the Comanches. The settlers made a request to Mexico for assistance. At the request of the settlers, Mexico sent a cannon to help ward off the attacks of the Indians. Santa Anna rose to power as the dictator of Mexico and was violating the original Constitution of 1824. The Texians and the settlers in the area did not like that and started rumors of revolt. Well, when Santa Anna heard of those rumors of revolt, he basically said, "We want our cannon back." So he sent a troop to retrieve the cannon, and the cannon was buried in a peach orchard here in Gonzales. Well, when the army was camped across the river that night, there were only 18 men in Gonzales, who are known as the Old 18, dug the cannon up, snuck across the river, and in the morning hours fired the cannon and ran off Santa Anna's troops, and that is known as the first shot of the Texas Revolution. Susanna Dickinson escaped the Alamo, and she and her young son came back to Gonzales and brought the news of the fall of the Alamo. Sam Houston was camped just outside of town here under what is known as the Sam Houston Oak, and gave the order for Gonzales to be burned, and thus started the runaway scrape, which was where all the citizens fled eastward to get away from Santa Anna's army.
Hey Clint, how's it going?
Hi Bob.
Hey, so tell me about this historic house we're at now.
This house was built in 1842, but one of the most significant things about it is its location right next to the Sam Houston Oak.
So this is where Sam Houston camped?
Well, this is where he was camped when he gave that order to have Gonzales burned, and this is where the settlers from Gonzales, when they were fleeing, spent their first night.
So Clint, why this tree?
Well, you can see there are lots of beautiful trees in the area, but apparently this was his favorite and the one he chose to set up his camp.
Well, the way these branches arch down here, it's almost like you do have a house built around you.
Absolutely.
So this sort of brings us to the end of Gonzales at that time. But I want to go back a little bit because I understand you know where the site is where the very first shot was fired, and there's actually a marker there now, and we can go visit that.
Yes, Bob, we'll take you out there next.
All right, sounds good. in Gonzales, Texas, where the first shots of the Texas Revolution rang out. The shots came from a small cannon that has now been immortalized on flags, window decals, t-shirts, album covers, and hundreds of other bits of memorabilia all over the world. But that little cannon is very real, and today on Expedition Texas, we're going to find it. But we start with a stop in the country to meet up with our guide, Gonzales, Texas Main Street Director, Clint Hilly. So this is where Sam Houston camped.
Well, this is where he was camped when he gave that order to have Gonzales burned, and this is where the settlers from Gonzales, when they were fleeing, spent their first night.
So this sort of brings us to the end of Gonzales at that time. But I want to go back a little bit because I understand you know where the site is where the very first shot was fired, and there's actually a marker there now, and we can go visit that.
Yes, Bob, we'll take you out there next.
All right, sounds good. But Clint had a few more stops scheduled for us before we got there, namely for lunch at the Come and Take It Bar and Grill. So I see this kind of stuff all over town, Clint. People getting in on the act with Come and Take It. We're here at the Come and Take It Bar and Grill now, and so this cannon has kind of made this town famous.
Absolutely. The local folks here, we're very proud of our heritage and the cannon, and it's actually become an international symbol of freedom and independence, and we're very proud of that.
Awesome, and everybody's getting in on the act. Let's see what we can have here. I think I saw like a Come and Take It burger in here.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, before we go see the site of the first shot of the Texas Revolution, we're going to eat at the Come and Take It Bar and Grill.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
This is it, Bob. This is where that first shot of the Texas Revolution was fired.
So from over here, and the monument sits and marks the spot, they fired across the river.
Yes, sir.
And who are they firing at now?
Santa Anna's troops.
Okay, telling them, hey, we're here, and then come and take it.
If they want the cannon, they better come and take it.
I love that. So here it is. This marks the spot, huh?
Yes, this monument was erected in 1908 by the school children of Gonzales County.
Yeah, and you can kind of see a little bit across there, an opening. Would that be where they were?
Yes, sir.
That's so cool.
That's it.
In a place like Gonzales, Texas, an effort is always made to preserve history. Therefore, there's not too much history that's lost to time. For example, this cabin that Clint stopped by to show us.
This is the Horace Eggleston house. It was one of the first houses built here in Gonzales after the runaway scrape. The house was originally built closer to the river, but was later moved here and restored. It's what they call a dog run style, meaning that there are two rooms on each end with a breezeway in the middle. One room was used for cooking and the other for sleeping.
Here on Expedition Texas, we explore lost history, abandoned buildings, and ghost towns. In our travels, we're finding more and more that small towns once on the brink of extinction are making a surprise comeback, thanks to some amazing Main Street offices, chambers of commerce, and other organizations. Main Street seems to have been reborn in a lot of towns. In fact, that's the name of our new web series, Main Street Reborn. Main Street was once where everything happened. You could shop, visit with neighbors, or grab a bite to eat. But the need to get everywhere faster changed that. Interstate highways flew around downtown, and Main Street all but died. But what's old is new again. Entrepreneurs are rediscovering the charm and history that comes with doing business downtown. New businesses are springing up in old historic buildings, and better yet, the people are starting to come back. This is Main Street Reborn, the show about the people and the businesses that are bringing Main Street back to life. Watch Main Street Reborn free on demand via Facebook Watch by following our page at Main Street Reborn. And if you run a Main Street office or Chamber of Commerce, find out how to have your city featured at mainstreetreborn.com. And coming up next, we find the Come and Take It cannon, dug up and restored and now kept in a museum in Gonzales, Texas. Is it the real thing? We'll find out next.
You're watching Expedition Texas.
We're in Gonzales, Texas, learning about the first shot of the Texas Revolution. A strong sense of Texas pride is brimming to the surface here in Gonzales, with the familiar cannon emblem and the words "Come and Take It" prevalent throughout the town. That cannon and that incident are very real, and in a museum in Gonzales, there is said to be the very cannon that fired the first shot of the Texas Revolution, and we're going to find it.
Hey Bob, I want to introduce you to Gary Shurik. He's the curator of our museum here.
Hey Gary.
Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us,
Our
man.
museum is kind of unique, being small. In fact, on our south side over here, we have one of Buck Wynn's murals. Also, there's one on the north side. We also have a dinosaur tusk.
Cool.
And an exceptional arrowhead collection, along with other things from the frontier life, pioneer life, whatever.
Now this other side, back behind you here though, has something that's pretty significant to the history of Texas.
Yes, that's where we house the Come and Take It cannon.
Can we see that?
Please come with me.
All right.
Before I show you the cannon, let me show you some other things that are key point to the museum.
Okay.
Right here at the beginning, we have the impresario Green DeWitt and his wife and some of their artifacts. And of course, we have the first family, the Eli Mitchell family. And of course, one of our important points is this memoir from George Washington Davis, who was actually one of them that fired the cannon, the Come and Take It battle, and he's one of the old 18.
That's his handwriting?
And that's his handwriting, yes.
Oh
definitely.
my gosh. And so he writes about the firing.
He wrote this memoir so it would be passed down through generations to his family of his life and what happened and all of that. Moving this way, we have our copy of the Travis letter.
Okay.
And we also have a teapot and a butter dish that was during the runaway scrape.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because we touched on that. We were out at the
Sam Houston Oak.
Yes, and there's actually a name for what they did when they left, the runaway scrape. Where
Correct.
did we get that name?
All we know is that Susanna Dickinson came here from the Alamo. She'd been released by Santa Ana. She had a letter for Sam Houston and all the other settlers. Stay here, you'll die, or start moving towards the United States. And so that's what they basically did, is that Sam Houston told them to start moving towards the east. Whatever you could carry, that's all you could leave with.
So these are some of the
So those are some of the things that they had to leave, because he will send Deaf Smith back from the Sam Houston Oak area and burn Gonzales to the ground and destroy all the supplies that's left.
So I guess these were just probably, it looks like these might have been just family things.
They were probably used while they were on that trip towards the east. And that is an old picture of the Sam Houston Oak.
And that house
that's
completely different.
That's right. That's the old stagecoach house there on the Brockus estate. And of course, now if you go out there, it's all renovated and everything. And the Sam Houston Oak even has its own little brick wall that tells you that it's the Sam Houston Oak. So,
that's awesome.
Bob, let me show you the main attraction here at the museum. This is the official, what we consider the official Come and Take It cannon. Cannon doesn't weigh but 69 pounds.
Really?
So you wonder why it's got a big cart and everything, but that was just the way they were going to travel with it, because it basically was carried on a mule, that size cannon. But this is it. This is what all of the hoopla, I say, about it, was that for some reason the Mexican government wanted it back.
Some historians debate the authenticity of the cannon as it relates to the stories about the start of the Texas Revolution. The folks in Gonzales say, let them argue. They know what they have. The famous cannon that started the Texas Revolution with a single shot and a dare. Come and take it. It just don't get more Texas than that. Coming up next on Expedition Texas, a look back and a tribute to one of our first guides here on the show. very first episode of Expedition Texas, we took you to a place called Cut Hand, which is a small community in Red River County, Texas. Tied pretty directly to me because it's where my grandfather was born and raised, Thomas L. Malden, who was our guide in that first episode. So I got to do an episode with my grandfather, and in that episode, he showed us this curio that he built with his own hands. He also built these models of the farmhouse and the barn and other elements of the old home place where he grew up in Cut Hand, Texas. And in 2020, my grandfather passed away, and we were not doing new episodes at the time, and so I wasn't really able to give a good tribute to him. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to close out this first episode of our new season by sharing something that I wrote for and about him. It's a song called The Cut Hand Kid. It features my father, Robert Malden. It features my son, Jacob Malden, my son, Ryan Malden, and my son, Clay Malden, all singing with me on this. It's something real special to my family, and I hope you enjoy it. It's called The Cut Hand Kid.
Old H.B. Malden had a general store where the whole county bought everything they wore. At the stroke of noon, he'd darken the door and scoot them bare feet across the hardwood floor. He was the Cut Hand Kid. The Cut Hand Kid. Big overalls and a white t-shirt, a spot or two of farmland dirt, a piece of penny candy, then it's back to work. A little hard work would never hurt that Cut Hand Kid. The Cut Hand Kid. Down by the Sulphur River, across that old iron bridge, sits the old home place where they raised the Cut Hand Kid. He may have went to the big city, but his heart never did. And of all the places he roamed, this country is still the home of the Cut Hand Kid. Years later on a Saturday, with him in the car, we found the way down the Cut Hand Road past Herman Belcher's place to see where my grandpa was born and raised, the Cut Hand Kid. The Cut Hand Kid. Big overalls and an old plaid shirt, a spot or two of pagoda dirt. Life of hard work never hurt. Working in the garden's his idea of work. He's the Cut Hand Kid. The Cut Hand Kid. Down by the Sulphur River, across that old iron bridge, sits the old home place where they raised the Cut Hand Kid. He may have went to the big city, but his heart never did. And no matter where he roams, the country's still the home of the Cut Hand Kid.
He left us on a Wednesday. He just spread his wings and flew away. I'd like to think up at Heaven's Gate, they're passing out overalls and pointing the way to Cut Hand.
For the Cut Hand Kid. Down by the Sulphur River, across that old iron bridge, sits the old home place where they raised the Cut Hand Kid. He may have went to the big city, but his heart never did. And of all the places he roamed, Cut Hand is still the home of the Cut Hand Kid. Red River County, Texas, 1933.